Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me thank the organizers for inviting me over here. Normally, it is said that a post-lunch session is a graveyard session, and I'm supposed to talk about issues in a graveyard orbit. So it's a tough call. So what I thought was that I will start with something which is slightly not been spoken of. What you see on a view file over here is essentially the recommendations and the prices and the screening of one of the documentaries uh, which was which has made a mark in the world, at least in certain parts of the world. The interesting aspect of this documentary is that the documentary doesn't stop at only at the level of a documentary, but it's a large scale project. Now, this project is known as a project Adrift. This is a very interesting project. Everybody was abusing debris, but this project says that space junk is the most beautiful junk in the world. You can adopt a piece of a space junk. You can have a Twitter account, and that junk will tweet with you and all that. So it's a very interesting concept. At the same time, it says that there is a issue which is related with environment. So everything is not honky-dory as far as space junk is concerned. So there are a certain amount of concerns as far as space junk is there, because the scientific community has got a wider understanding, but one has to create a better understanding of what is space junk is all about. So they did a documentary, they established a project, and now what they are having is something which is known as a Machine 9. This is a very interesting concept where they are saying that whenever the space debris comes overhead, the machine will automatically start creating a music, giving you certain amount of indications that this music is on. That means there is a space junk which is floating around. If it is affecting you, be responsible towards it, try to take preventive measures about it, or otherwise just enjoy it. So what essentially they are saying is that space junk is all about music. So the task in front of me is, I really don't know whether I can make the music to your ears about the space junk, but this is what the people are started looking at a space junk besides the strategic domain and other issues. The problem is very known. We have just discussed about it. I'll not spend much of a time on it. We need to prevent collisions in space. Space junk happens because of various other things also. It's not only because of a ASAT test. There are multiple options which are available. Only challenge is that whether all those options are feasible and doable options. So the presentation focus, as far as my presentation goes, is that it is not about space debris removal technologies, because the technologies are there. I will make a mention to technologies, but I'm not getting into the intricacies or the details of technologies. To be very honest, many of them are very difficult to understand. Other thing is that after Anjana ma'am, I'm not going to talk about the details of the issues related with legal aspects also. So essentially what I'm going to talk about is that I'm not going to offer you any solutions. I'm going to talk about you what you already know. There is a often very thin line between a long-term vision and what is generally considered as an outlandish idea. I think this is where presently the issues of a space debris is there. When we are talking of a debris removal options, there are various technological options more in the realm of theory, which have been projected by many scientific communities, and some of them are doing certain amount of experimentation, maybe at a tier 1, tier 2, but people have not got permission or that much amount of assets to do those sorts of experimentation directly out into the space. So most of the experiments are happening at a level of simulation. So this is what is the background. How the space debris is been defined. There is a standard definition as far as space debris is concerned, and what is more important as far as definition of a space debris is that it has been defined as an object. So this could be considered, there are many people who are of the opinion that this is a too sweeping a definition, but as far as United Nations various mandates are concerned, they define everything as a space object. So in a sense, this definition really serves the purpose. There are various classifications of space debris. I'm not getting into any of the details over here is that, but only point which I want to make home over here is that I'm going to look, or rather the entire world is looking only at a artificial classification of a space debris, because as far as natural ways of creating debris, the point which was made that it's not only ASAT which create debris, there are various other means because of which the debris are there. So in these means also there is a good amount of experimentation is happening. Particularly you must have heard very ambitious experiments that can we change the track of the asteroid, so on and so forth, but we'll not get into the details of it. Why debris are there in space? There is an increased number of debris because simple, we are having increment in launches of satellites. Then there are certain amount of things which remain over there. What actually creates a debris? The last stage of a satellite, the rocket stage, which remains mostly into the outer space, and it keeps on rotating out over there. So the basic problem of creation of a debris is not a anti-satellite test or any other thing, but basic problem is that the moment you launch a satellite, there is a good possibility that you will end up creating debris too. Then there are debris which are happening because satellites, the junk is also colliding with each other. It's not that the live satellites are colliding with each other, but the old satellites which are totally defunct, some of them are colliding with each other and they are also creating good amount of a debris. Then there are a few other things which are happening, like an astronaut has gone out for a spacewalk, his gloves was dropped there, a screwdriver was dropped there. So these are isolated cases, but yes, there are certain debris which are there. Then few years back, there was an advertising agency which has created a gimmick that they had sent a golf ball out into the space. So that also remains a debris over there. So other than ASAT, these are the means why there are debris. Now, how many debris are there out into the space? One can always challenge this data, but this is a rough data which has been available freely on the internet. That's why I'm projecting it over here. You can see the number of debris. Now what happens is that when you're talking of a debris is distributed based on the size. So there are 10 centimeter debris, there are certain debris which are less than 10 centimeter, there are slightly debris which are of a greater size too. So based on all these things, there is some amount of information is available which is there on the screen. Now don't look into the minor details of these graphs over here. Just look at the bigger share of the debris which is there into a low Earth orbit. It is expanding right from 1960 onwards, even today. So the maximum number of a debris which is available as of now is into a low Earth orbit. There are debris available in other orbits too, but they are limited in numbers. Now the challenge is that there are activities which are happening in space and those activities are going to increase. So we can't do much about it. More importantly, now private players are also entering into a space market. So that is also going to add the debris. Then there are concepts which are happening like in orbit servicing, so on and so forth. So again, there is going to be a chance of more increment into the debris. It is actually difficult to predict how much could be the volume of a debris tomorrow. Because today, if there is a fourth stage of a rocket somewhere out into the space, and if it gets bursted, it may create 2 debris or it may create 100 debris also. So one can't really identify or project that how many number of debris could be there out into the space in the future. The first debris which is been known to have been identified by the human beings was after almost 116 satellites, 115 satellites have gone out into the space. The incidence which has been put over here, it happened in the year 1961. There was a US satellites, its rocket stage bursted out into the space. At that point, the rocket stage created some 298 trackable fragments of the debris. I believe as of date, more than 200 fragments are still trackable. So that means for so many years also, the debris continues to remain over here. I have given the altitudes also. It's not a very high altitude out over there. It's less than 1,000 kilometers altitude. So before these debris, there was no real identification of a debris per se. But whatever activities which had happened, people started tracing it back. They realized that almost 45% of that sort of activities could be considered or re-christened as debris. So whatever fragments were lying there before 1961, 40% or 45% have been categorized as debris and they have been continuously monitored since then. There are few acknowledged facts also. Everybody says that debris are bad, but nobody on the surface of the earth is fool enough to do debris just like that. Why? Because you look at this costs of how much amount of money you require to put 1 kg out into the space. it requires almost $10,000. SpaceX is now saying that they will bring down the cost to the $2,000 per kg, but that's what the future lies. But otherwise, if I'm putting so much amount of money, definitely I would like my system to function properly and not to interfere into somebody's hands. So whatever debris which are happening, barring few ASAT tests, have happened because man has got no control over them. So today's satellite obviously becomes a tomorrow's space debris, and one must understand that fact and give certain amount of a weightage to it before unnecessarily saying that, oh, your space program is a debris creator. Almost 60% or more than 60% debris is known to be of a Russian or a Chinese origin, but nobody is going to accept it as it is. Basically because there is no international law which is governing the debris things. Then we are talking about space debris as a problem. It has been recognized for many years now that it is a problem. But the challenge is this, that if my satellite goes there, it becomes defunct, then there are very few people who are actually ready to own up the debris. Nobody is ready to even own up the debris today. So the creator of a debris, the creator of a satellite is not ready to own up the debris, and that's where the problem is going to be. And there are various issues which are associated with it. Actually owning up a debris again gets into a legal tangle, so on and so forth. So definitely people are more concerned about it. Then actually eradicating the debris is not possible. So the best option is that to find mechanism to prevent the debris. So there are various efforts which have been done as far as debris reduction is there. And the efforts go back to early 1970s. One of the very finest paper which was written in 1980s, around 1980s, called Outer Space Activities and Various Activities Happening into the Outer Space. It is a first recommended space debris mitigation measures which was recommended by this paper, but I'm sure you must be very familiar with a name called Kessler. He along with one other scientist had written one or two papers before that, and those papers also had identified that yes, space debris is there and you need to take a preventive mechanism as far as addressing the issues of space debris is concerned. Kessler came out with a very simplistic formulation, but which is very well known today, known as a Kessler syndrome. He came with the idea that in space also we are seeing that two debris hit each other. We really don't know when they are going to hit each other. The moment that hit is taking place, more number of debris are getting created. So at end of the day, whatever mechanism you apply of reducing the debris, the number of debris is going to increase only, because all the debris are free flowing, and there is a possibility, and it is actually happening also, that the debris will hit each other. So the number of debris is going to increase. There is a pile of space rubble which is already there. As I had shown in the graph, that more amount of a space rubble is into a low Earth orbit. But otherwise you have got certain other stuff which is into a medium Earth orbit as well as a geostationary orbit too. So we know that we have to really address these issues, and people have started developing technologies for various orbital regions also. There was a talk about the creation of a debris, whether the debris can be more created at a lower level because of a ASAT test or more in a higher level. As far as today's technology is concerned, India has claimed that they can conduct a ASAT test till say 1000 kilometers. China is known to have conducted tests which have reached to a 30,000 kilometers also. So the debris which has been created because of a ASAT test can happen into various orbits too. The nature of a damage. Even a chip of a pent can create a damage to a satellite. Particularly it is believed that the debris which is around more than 10 centimeters will actually create a major damage to the satellite. Otherwise there are minor damages which are possible because of the other debris. Now there are certain mechanisms which have been put into, which are known as shielding of a satellite. But the shielding of a satellite mechanism also amounts to taking care of a debris which is around 1 centimeter. So bigger debris, we still don't have a technology that you got a ruggedized satellite which can really address the issue of a debris. You look at the number of debris over here. In 1980, we had around 5,400 debris which are more than a size of a 10 centimeter. By 2010, it had increased to 15,000 plus. That means within a period of 30 years, there was an increment of a debris by 10,000. But you look at the present statistics now. Now we have got around 22,000 debris. That means from 2010 till 2009, during a period of 9 years itself, we have already created 7,000 odd debris. So the number of a debris is definitely increasing. Cause and effect options. Again, there are various other options which have been made available. Particularly, people have come out with certain amount of a fragmentation debris. The major debris happens because of your satellite getting bursted, the upper stage getting bursted. The debris jam is also taking place, nothing much to discuss over here. As far as debris are concerned, the technologies are pretty okay as far as low Earth orbit debris are there. For medium Earth orbit, there are major challenges because your geostationary orbit, you put the stuff into a graveyard orbit. For a low Earth orbit, you get the things down, and as it enters the Earth's atmosphere, it starts burning. So you can get rid of those debris. The real challenge is coming into a medium Earth orbit. So there are certain amount of problems about tracking of the debris too. For space tracking, there was a mention already made that we need to have a space situational awareness network. So I'll not spend time on it. There are various debris removal technologies which have been there. Some of them are actually very far-fetched technologies. You must have heard other technologies like space lasso and all that. So there are various technologies. I'll not get into the details of it. There are 2 to 3 important points which are there. I will finish my presentation with that. Recycling of a satellite parts is a new concept which is coming up. Idea is that a satellite goes unserviceable means what? It actually loses a source of a power. Otherwise, your sensors and rest all the systems are operational. So if you can replace by that source of a power by using a robotic equipment, it's all good. Then there are various mechanisms which are there. The key mechanisms which are Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee. This is one of the most successful mechanism. Then there is a non-profit organization also called Space Data Association, which is looking at debris and providing data. Active debris removal, the methods which you're going to use can also be converted as a space-based weapon too. So that is a concern. Then there are programs which are there called end-to-end service. So Germany has come out with a program that they are telling the satellite agencies that they will provide them with all sorts of expertise right from start of a project to the end of a project, how to handle the issues related to debris. There are a few other things also which have come up. Self-regulation by the state and industry, I think, is going to be the key. Space debris, there are legal challenges. There are certain amount of confusions also. There has to be a certain amount of a link between a debris and ownership, but that's not is happening. Is space being considered as a common heritage to mankind? I really don't think so. There are states which are taking out with certain amount of mechanisms which are detrimental to the space security. Particular case in point is Obama has said that his country can, his private industry can go to the asteroids and keep the stuff with them only. The future as far as debris is concerned, it's pretty unpredictable. In conclusion, I will say that technology is offering you solutions, but at the same time, the same technology is giving you challenges vis-a-vis space security, because every debris mechanism from a technological point of view actually could be converted into a IFFAAD sort of a capability. First generation space law may not be sufficient. We need to look more towards it. I think more than the technology, it's the cooperation which is important. Thank you so much.
Thank you.